of InsurTech Express, and today I'm excited to be joined by Grace McNamara. She's the Chief Strategy Officer at Elfie and our newest InsurTech Express partner focused on life insurance innovation. So welcome, Grace. How are you
Hey,
doing
Ken.
today?
I'm good. Good to see you again.
All right, so tell us more about yourself and why should U.S. insurers listen to you?
Hey, yeah, Ken, it's an interesting time right now. My background's more physiology, epidemiology, but I've always worked in tech, and I spent many years at Apple, spent many years on the side of the table of the Apple HR side of the table, working with insurers in many markets, and then moved over to the partnership side of the table where I worked alongside insurers in many markets as well. So working on strategy, and ultimately I tried to figure out how does technology support the strategic initiatives of insurers and making sure that the business goals ultimately are achieved and tech as a support, and kind of come from the science side, but thankfully work with geniuses across the table, whether they're actuaries or whether they're engineers, and kind of bringing that all together. So yes, it's kind of my side. I'm looking at enough to have worked in the US as well as in many markets over the years with many players, and yeah, worked at many of the good solutions as well that many players have been acquired, or there's M&A as well.
Very cool. All right, so talk to us about Alfie and tell us, what they're all about and why they're different.
Yeah, Elfie is an interesting platform. It's very comprehensive. So bear with me a moment, because I think what we often do in insurance and particularly with technologies is we break them down into fragmentation or into silos. And Elfie ultimately is a health super app and a health super platform. So it brings everything together into one place. So when we get asked, is it an engagement tool? The answer is yes. Is it a chronic disease management tool? The answer is yes. Is it a lifestyle medicine wellness tool? The answer is yes. Is it medication adherence? Yes, it is. Is it a data console where it's aggregating all the data for the population? Yes. So there's quite a number of pieces to this. So the way I kind of try to describe it is that there's a health super app, as in the person at the center of this ecosystem. And then there's multiple different platforms and dashboards and ultimately tools around that to support the ecosystem. So insurance being one, we also work very closely with pharma partners. We work very closely with researchers. We work very closely with governments. So all of these tools kind of work together in one ecosystem, because at the end of the day, the end user, the member, is one person that touches off of all these different areas in the health ecosystem. So it's quite a comprehensive ecosystem. And hence I often get caught into the world of, is it an app? I'm like, yes, it is. And it's a very fantastic, comprehensive app. But the difference here is that it's pretty much 20 different solutions in one place. And I think over the years, the evolution of technologies in insurance and the evolution of technologies in health means that we've had lots of different single point solutions, really good ones. And we've had lots of solutions that have worked in insurance and so on. But ultimately, Elfie has looked at, well, what's worked well? What's the best of the best? And literally rebuilt them into one solution. So for any of the audience listening, think of the 10, 20 apps that you're probably used to using. Think of them all actually is one app where they're ultimately reverse engineered in one space. So much more comprehensive.
Well, let's talk about it from an insurer or carrier perspective here in the U.S. I mean, can you kind of elaborate what would that mean, and what's the value, and what does that look
Yeah.
like, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose the challenge that we see in the US and in other markets as well is, the technologies that have been built by insurers over the years have, mainly their focus is internal, right? It's making sure the claims process is efficient. It's getting through that mounds of data that it takes for the actuaries to literally underwrite and to create the pricing and so on. What we're doing with insurers ultimately saying is, well, you don't need to build everything internally. I appreciate internal operations make sense, and you've got good engineers and good developers for internal operations and claims processing. But the consumer expectation, the member expectations have just 10x in the last 12 to 24 months. So we're saying, look, we have ultimately a very comprehensive solution. We can co-brand, we can co-design, we can co-create, we can ultimately amalgamate all the different single point solutions in one space, and also then work on care navigation, so we can navigate members to what they need, whether it's early detection, whether it's identification of a condition, so getting early diagnosis, whether it's starting to intervene in costs that are going to be high. I'm doing a lot of work right now on diabetes. And diabetes is a huge caveat. First of all, lots of people are are excluded from members from coverage. But then if they're on the group book, they're obviously in there, and it's compounding costs year and year and year. So because we're science based and because we're comprehensive in one place, it means that we can genuinely tackle a number of the different nuances in all of these populations: hypertension, diabetes, whether it's just a fit getting fitter who are going to have a high risk of Alzheimer's in later life. So we can tackle all those in a personalized way, but making sure that it looks, feels, and identifies as an app belong to the insurer, which I think is a very important association.
Right. Well, I've heard some of this before. I'll be honest, I've been around a long time in the industry. And so when we talk about how Elfie it's different and we look at activation, engagement, sustained engagement and retention. I mean, so what are you doing that's different versus maybe other apps and services that may be out there?
Yeah, and like the good news of this, I can share the research as well, Ken, which I think we've already referenced as well, is what we've proven, first of all, that we can activate higher, we can engage more members and then engage for longer. One of the biggest reasons here, and I think what we do wrong in health, and I would have been on the side of the table that has done this wrong in the past, is we assume intrinsic motivation, that people are motivated by small things. And realistically, we need to kind of combine all of the methodologies of behavior change again into one place. So extrinsic motivation, gamification, are huge, and they don't sit comfortably with insurers, Ken. I think gamification, it feels gimmicky sometimes in the terminology around it, but realistically, it's neuroscience. It works very well. We all see the hooks and the things that bring us into the likes of your Instagrams and so on. But all those, there's actually science behind every single methodology. And one of the biggest factors here, and this is where the co-founders of Elfie are two geniuses that have spent many, many years working with technologies and working with advertisements and working with engagements and massive global campaigns. And they've ultimately just brought all that learning in together as well. And that's where I don't think we've had that before, Ken, on the health side. We've assumed that if people know enough about information and about their condition, that they'll activate all of the things we tell them to do. That kind of stick mentality. It hasn't worked. And then the other thing that I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, is we've seen massive big rewards that economically are struggle to make sense for the population that the insurer is trying to insure at a large population. Works really well for the fit kitty fitter because they're doing it anyway. But insurers have not seen the return on the book for those that have chronic diseases, high cost and compounding cost. And then they become not sticky. So to your point exactly, we've had loads of great campaigns that have worked for small populations for short periods of time. And they've had some return. I'm not saying that nothing has worked for sure. But we're now at a point, especially with the ability of our AI or LLMs, in order to personalize every single aspect here, but to bring more and more of the gamification, more and more of the external intrinsic motivations together into one place. And then to your point, Ken, I don't believe that anyone needs to believe what I say. That we've done research with real world evidence research as well as randomized controlled trials in order to prove this. So we're seeing that not only the health impact, but the engagement, but the activation. And that's one of the reasons why I'm really eager to partner, well with the insurers, because they obviously know themselves what works for their audience and as it is. And we just make sure we stack everything together in one place. And hence we get a huge activation, huge engagement.
So if I were to understand this right, I mean, we look at the models always had good intention for both the policyholder and supposedly an ROI for the carrier, but it's flawed. And you guys have been able to solve both pieces of it. So there is a return on investment for the carrier, so it's cost effective, and you get the stickiness and retention on the policyholder side. I mean, is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly. And it's a level up, Ken, as you say. The things that have worked in the past, it's not like we're saying they haven't. We're saying there's plenty has worked, but we need to level up. And now that we have the ability to really double down on personalization, gamification, and everything else, then we have an ability to do that now. And the big difference here then is because of the way the infrastructure is built, as I said, this is not a standalone separate application or a separate solution. It's combined and collaborating with the insurer to bring everything into one place. So it makes it much easier for the member, which as we all know, multiple platforms, multiple apps does lead to not being sticky. It leads it to be confusing and fragmented, which we need to solve for.
Yeah, if I have to be all over the place on the app side, then I may get excited the first couple of days and then I'm done.
Right.
So,
Yeah, 6 weeks. I mean, a lot of programs last really well for the first 6 weeks, if not three
right.
months. And then, we're looking at 12 month to 24-month data in particular. And that's That's where it needs to be.
So, yeah, no, that's perfect. So, how does Alfie address the concern of insurers regarding inducement risk?
Yeah, this is something we hear a lot is that if we're saying people have to do something in the health space, then what does that mean for the premium and for the underwriting?
But for some people in the audience, what is inducement risk?
Yeah. So, and again, Ken, you're probably the best person to describe this. But the way I hear it and the way I look at it is the concern from insurers is that if the premium is linked to an activity or a behavior or an outcome, it can be risky for the insurer. And we're very conscious of making sure that we're avoiding the risk on the insurance side. And that's one of the reasons why there hasn't been too many tools that have linked to, you do X, you achieve Y, change an outcome, and hence you get a premium change with it. There's obviously risk. And to be fair, it's not a risk in every market. So it does vary a little bit, but in the US, it's definitely a risk for the insurers, which we take into consideration. And that's one of the reasons why when we're building out the solution and the compliance factor, making sure we're compliant with these risks, is got to do with autonomy. So it brings it back to Ken, when you onboard to Elfie or any other member, you're choosing what works, what you want to start working on, what you want to start self-monitoring. We're going to nudge you in the direction of what you need based upon all the science and the guidelines and based upon the data that you enter. But the idea being that you have full autonomy and you have full choice. So we're not inducing you into you have to do ABC in order to get your premium or to get your premium discount. That's a really valuable tool. And it's something actually that I'd love to work on more with insurers because it is a very attractive incentive and extrinsic motivation. But we are very conscious that it doesn't link upfront to that premium discount. But it's definitely something we can work on because we have lots of data for the insurer and the ability to prove that this person actually has changed their health outcome. So the risk is lower. But we've got to get creative on how do we do that without inducement risk being a problem.
Okay, so uh, this is a curious one. I mean, participation is not mandatory, as we know, but what if it was?
This is a really interesting one. I think because of the way the world has changed in the last couple of years with data, I think important in participation is we're saying we can tell you exactly what you should do in order to improve your health 10x, right? In order to, whether it's reverse diabetes, whether it's to manage hypertension, whether it's just to reduce down your risk of Alzheimer's or whatever the condition that you're risky of. So we're working on how do we make sure that we can build up the positive rewards towards every single action that gets you towards doing exactly what you should be doing for your health. But it needs to come from the angle of reward. It needs to come from the angle of carrot as opposed to the stick. And it's a really, really positive way of working on what else is in this ecosystem of rewards and solutions and benefits. And it could be, lots of insurers have lots of allied health professionals in their book of business, and they can often be great rewards. So it's just building all this together so we get people to actually tackle what they need, but leveraging as rewards in order to do so. And I'd love to be in a situation where we're saying to people, you know what, we know exactly what you need, and we're going to reward you for every single behavior that you do. Which means that it's not mandatory, but it becomes much more enticing and much more directive into I'm going to benefit by doing every behavior and not just for the health benefit, because that seems to be it's too long. Some of us are happy enough to think about the health benefits in 10 years. Most people need it today. They need that reward, that instant gratification today. So it definitely works when you combine all together into one place.
Awesome. So to wrap this all up, I mean, what would be the takeaway message you would like for our audience to walk away with?
Yeah, the one thing I mentioned briefly is that we have, pharma partners, for example. So one of the two things there is one is working with our pharma partners. We have a very good ecosystem. We have a very good modern technology stack ultimately, which means we can work very quickly. We're obviously very regulated and we have all the evidence and the ability to showcase HIPAA and GDPR and all of the complexities of SOC 2 and all that. So that's kind of a given. But realistically, we're able to kind of turn around a customized app within 24 hours for insurers. So that's one of the things that the takeaway is let's test this out quickly, easily, and be able to pull something together that is pretty comprehensive for the insurer that typically, in my experience, would have taken 12 months to plan out and 12 months to develop and mock up and even just to get to testing. we're saying we can have this live in 24 hours without it being a mock-up or a test. It can be a genuinely live application, co-branded, co-designed, linking to your claims, linking to your customer service, linking to your cover. And the beauty of the end member, then they can check what they're covered for at the same time using the AI so that they know what they're covered for, when they're covered, where they're covered, and they can get access to the solutions that they need at the insurer's covering. So, the complexity of what would have taken 12 months today is obsolete. And that's one of the things I think the really big takeaway here is think speed, think cheap as well, because again, our partnerships with pharma allow us to work clever on the pricing side of things, but it means that we're able to really, really bring together high quality at low cost without having to sacrifice the ability for the member or the insurer.
Awesome. Well, Grace, thank you very much. I mean, this has been a fantastic conversation, and I appreciate the practical perspective you've shared and how life insurance can approach engagement in a way that's evidence based, compliant, and sustainable. So that's all good stuff. I mean, for everyone watching, if you would like to learn more about Elfie and how InsurTech Express is partnering to bring these solutions to the life insurance market, please reach out to us directly. I mean, thanks again for joining us today. We'll see you at the next InsurTech Express Live.
Great. Thank you, Ken.